We are good to go in 3, 2.
Welcome to America UnCanceled on CPAC Now. I'm here without my better half, Mercedes, who's out there doing something very important, as she always is. I can never keep up with all of her activities. But today, the mantle of talking to Julie Levin falls on me. And I've been really enjoying watching the shows that Julie and Mercy have had together. So, Julie, thanks for joining us again for what was an incredibly, I think, significant day and moment for American-Israeli relations. You were at the rally yesterday, which I drove by on my way to do some television. I wanted to be at the rally but couldn't, but I was incredibly impressed with the huge crowd in such a short period of time. Give us your reflections.
So first of all, thank you for having me on, Matt. It's always a pleasure. And while I miss Mercy, you are certainly the other equally good and wonderful half. So yesterday was an amazing experience for me. I've been to rallies before. I went to the Tea Party rally in 2009 and so forth. But yesterday was particularly important to me as a Jew and as an American because the many of the signs said, Americans stand with Israel. And so I think being an American, regardless of your faith, and standing by Israel is crucially important for many of the reasons we've talked about. So yesterday in particular was a humbling experience, I would say, for me. There were about 300,000 people there with all different kinds of signs. Many carried the kidnapping, the signs that that your viewers and I have seen getting pulled down all over the United States by the haters. I will call them Jew haters because that is what they are. Here, people were able to hold them freely. The police, all different kinds of law enforcement were there. So it was very, very safe. Everybody was extremely kind. You felt like you were there with the kindred spirits, even though you did not know, about 300,000 other people standing there. But it really didn't matter. It was put together very quickly and very professionally. I will say that while some of the speakers were great, I'm going to silence my phone, by the way. I don't know whether your viewers can hear what is sounding.
Is that the ringer that only Mark Levin has on your phone, the emergency dial?
No, actually what that is, and the timing is actually rather fortuitous. Maybe this is Hashem, God, speaking to us, because that is an app. That's from an app called Red Alert that anybody can download anywhere in the world. And if the wonderful CPAC audience is interested just to get a taste of what it's like being an Israeli, I downloaded that app because that app alerts people to enemy infiltration, essentially, an incoming rocket or an incoming drone or a terrorist infiltration. And if you look at it, at the alert page itself, you will see one after the other, red alert, like within seconds. If I didn't have it on silent, this would be going off all day. And this is the life these people lead. So sometimes I keep it on, and I apologize, I didn't turn it off, but I think actually at the same time, as I said before, it's fortuitous that I had it on because people will hear and understand this is the life in Israel.
So Julie, when Jews come together, and I know that it wasn't just Jews in the crowd yesterday, it was lovers of Israel, probably a lot of Christians as well. Do you get more nervous today that, I drove by, there was a sea of blue and white, the colors of the Israeli flag, a lot of Israeli flags, a lot of American flags. Don't you kind of worry that that's a moment when the enemy could strike?
Yesterday, I was not worried. You mean being there and being present? Yeah. I was not worried. And somebody said to me, you're going to the rally in D.C., it could be dangerous. I said, look, every single day, our brothers and sisters are putting their life on the line in Israel. We have an army there that's, they have to serve. So it's not like the United States where we think of our military, and these people are trained, this is their job, right? I joined the military, et cetera. It's a volunteer army. In Israel, it's required service. Mm-hmm. So you have 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old and up fighting. But you also have, they called up all their reservists. So think of you and me and doctors, lawyers, engineers, whomever, plumbers that are in the audience listening to us now, seeing us now. They would be called up. The farmers, their lives are disrupted, and they have to go and they serve their country. So me going to a rally is nothing compared to what these people are willing to do. So I didn't give it a moment's thought seriously. I've been known to like sort of rush toward the center of danger.
I've seen you do it. I can attest to it.
I've done it. Guilty as charged, but that's okay. If I may, I'd like to talk about, though, for a minute, some of the speakers and the reaction.
Julie, I want you to do that. I want you to know that sometimes I get tagged for being in the middle of trouble as well, but I hardly ever run. I try to walk fast because that's about as good as I can do. You're the marathoner. I'm more the ambler. But we want to hear who was there and why it was important.
So some of the speakers were fine and good, and I will tell you, Richie Torres, for example, who is a Democrat from Brooklyn, who I do not agree with on 99.9% of his stances, but he's extremely pro-Israel. And has a track record of the same. It wasn't just a, hey, I'm going on the stage like several of the others and I'm going to say what people need to hear. And I think he's authentic in that regard. So he was very, very strong, very positive. But let me point out a couple who were not, in my opinion. It was rather shocking that they had Van Jones speak. I have no clue what his value was. Somebody said, well, maybe they're appeasing the other side. My view is this is not a time for appeasement. We are now in a time of good versus evil. And Van Jones works for CNN. CNN immediately called for a ceasefire and a standing down basically the day that this horrific attack started and has not ceased. I mean, there's over 1,000 rockets now that have been lobbed into Israel. It wasn't like October 7 and then they went home and ate bonbons. This assault continues. So Van Jones spoke. I happened to be standing on chairs in the front. I was lucky enough to have congressional access. And I was standing in the front on chairs. And when he came up, I made a comment to somebody next to me. I had no idea whether they were on my side of the aisle or not politically. And I made a comment about why him? He's with CNN. They're terrible. And the woman said to me, yeah, I agree. So it was heartfelt to know that, there are people who are aware and don't just blindly follow rhetoric. When he spoke, he was very telling, though, because he referred to Israel and Palestine. And I said, where's Palestine? There's no such thing as Palestine. That's now becoming part of the rhetoric that people are adopting, not understanding there's no such thing as Palestine. He made another comment that caused other people to say they were chanting no ceasefire. I don't know whether it came across to those who were watching on television, but it was really telling to me and very positive that people are aware and know the stance of CNN and know what they were saying. So that was great. Having him on was really appalling. I'll say Chuck Schumer was a disgrace. He, to me, is an example of somebody who's a Jew in name only, honestly.
Terrible on the Iran deal. He almost facilitated it in some ways. It was really...
He did. You're right.
He mouthed opposition, but in the end, so many of these people who act like they're supporters of Israel were for the deal.
That's correct. And he, as a matter of fact, you're spot on, Matt. He understood that the Senate, that Obama had the votes in the Senate, so he was safe to vote against it. Mm-hmm. If he is a political animal, and he stood there with the big chants, and I can't even recall what he said. I tuned some of it out. It was so appalling.
Can I give you my reaction to it?
Yes.
First of all, in all candor, Van Jones, as unlikely as it seems, is someone I'm friendly with, is a friend of mine. And Charles Schumer is not. Make that very clear. But in some ways, I was relieved, as partisan as I am, I was relieved to see Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer at least be there. Even if we can question their motives and how political they are and everything else. To me, it's a terrible thing if it becomes a fait accompli that no Democrat will come to a pro-Israel rally. To me, that's scary for Israel.
With you. I agree with you, Matt, but I think, and Schumer was there because he's the leader of he's the leader of the Senate, right? I get it. I'm just giving my analysis of the lack of authenticity. Hakeem Jeffries, again, had to be there, right? He's the minority leader. But what people don't know is the history, for example, of his uncle, who is a virulent anti-Semite, and he lost his position. I think it was at some SUNY school, State University, in upstate New York. So there's a huge history there with Hakeem Jeffries. Mm-hmm. So when someone speaks, I understand he's there due to his position. If they were leadership, he'd speak if he was minority, majority, whatever. But it's so inauthentic if you know the facts.
So the only true, if you look at these two parties, they're both imperfect. I think you and I would both agree we could probably do endless shows on how the Republican Party disappoints us.
Correct.
But the only of the two major parties, there's one party that's a friend of Israel, and that's the Republican Party. It's not everybody in it, but by and large, when it comes to Israel's security, it's the Republicans who are doing the hard work.
So I would agree with you 100%. And unfortunately, it is partisan because when you have a Democrat Party that refuses to call out not just one, not just two, but an increasing 5 or 6 or 7 members of their party who are overtly Jew haters. No longer should we call them the squad. These people are the Hamas squad. Mm-hmm. That is what they are. And and I know that if there's somebody in our party, and we've done it, you and I have called out people who have R's after their names, with whom we have great or even minor disagreement. We're not afraid to call them out. No matter what, the Democrat Party, with an exception of 1 or 2, stand together.
That's right.
Tall and strong, just like sheep, and they will not betray each other. And so and that's not how you and I operate. So that's particularly troublesome to us. At what point I chanted, go away CNN, go away CNN. No. And actually there were people around me who heard it and said it. It would not, it wasn't anything that Van Jones would hear because it wasn't loud enough.
Well, the CNN piece of this is a big problem. You've been with us, but as we do these CPACs overseas, not just the CPAC we did in Israel, but the CPAC we've done in so many continents, their one news source is CNN International. And if you think CNN domestic here in America is bad, wait till you watch CNN International overseas. It is nonstop America hating. And that's their only news source. So you do bring up a very, very serious problem, which is we can't credentialize CNN as real news.
Correct. And BBC and Sky News. I mean, internationally, that's what it's really compounded. So I would say what was great, a bit frustrating. I was actually trying to reach people at CPAC because we were going to do a man on the street and we were going to do some interviews. But there were so many people there, Matt, that our cell phones were jammed. So we couldn't even call, we couldn't even communicate. So,
and you never know in America whether that's an actual spontaneous jamming or someone's jamming you. Like, these are the weird times we're in.
100%. As a matter of fact, I went over, there was a freelance cameraman there who was doing a documentary on the families of the hostages, and I'd like to share with you something that I experienced last night about that. And I asked him if he had a means by which I could charge my phone. And so he had one of those little mobile apparatus. And I said to him, what's kind of scary is we don't know at any given, it could be the Chinese, it could be another element of the evil access that's jamming our phones. We've become so dependent.
We've become so dependent. So you brought up this dinner. So there's the rally, but then there's this whole story. There's the politics, there's the funding, there's the strategic partnership between America and Israel. But then there's this people story, the hostages, the families that are dealing with dead loved ones in this carnage. there's that story, and you're very connected into that. Tell us what you did with the dinner that you hosted.
Yeah. So as everybody knows, there are Israeli, American, and other hostages that were taken, brutally taken on the morning of October 7th. 200 family members of these hostages, so it doesn't even account for all of them, decided with, there's a movement called the Chabad movement, Chabad, which is, it's a Jewish movement that is very opening and lets people come regardless of the degree of their observance to a Chabad. You think synagogue, but a synagogue often is a building, and it doesn't have to be. And they're all over the world. And the Chabad in Israel got together with 200 of these family members to come to the United States. Why? To pray at the founding Rebbe, is what he's referred to, at his resting place in Brooklyn. And this is I've been there. It is the most powerful, poignant, humbling place to go. And Natan Sharansky has been there. Reagan went. I mean, it's a very well-known place to go. And they flew in, they chartered a plane from Israel to go to the Ohel just to pray. Had nothing to do with the rally, had nothing to do with politics. Why? Because they have no place to turn. Imagine getting a call, imagine getting a text, I'm being taken, I may never see you again. So these people came to the United States to pray and to turn around and to go back.
Okay, so let me ask you a question, more of a theological question. What are they praying for?
They are praying not just for the release of their family members, but for peace. Mm-hmm. It is so amazing, A, the inner strength, and B, their desire that this has to end once and for all. This living with a neighbor that wants to annihilate you merely because of your faith, has to stop.
Yeah, and Julie, it must be galling for them. You had this outrageous attack on the state of Israel, on the Israeli people, and then immediately their acolytes in the media are calling for a ceasefire after they hit. And it's almost like they're trying to make the Palestinians, air quotes, be the purveyors of peace. Oh, we're just trying to reduce tensions. It's like, it's outrageous. If someone came into my family and killed 2 of my daughters, of my 5, and then said to me, oh, you should just forgive them and you should just kind of settle down, maybe get some counseling and not do anything, I would say, hell no, I'm going to hire a lawyer. I'm going down to the police station. I'm going to do a million things to get justice. And that's what they're saying to the Israeli people. There's no justice for you. There's no security for you. You just got to live through this moment by being peaceful, which there's nothing peaceful about making yourself vulnerable because you're just encouraging more violence. And then you're going to get hit again. And they make it sound like that's just the way you have to live.
Right. And that is actually how they have lived. So what happened was they chartered this plane. They came in to go to the Ohel to pray for the safety and liberation of their family. The chant, bring them home, which was chanted a lot yesterday, is basically what they were praying for. And it was after that, this trip was planned, that the rally happened. Because as you said at the top of the program, the rally was, it was quite quickly put together and well done. So it was at that point they decided, we're coming in for this. Let's take a bus. Let's come down to D.C. Let's see who we can see on the Hill. And then we're going to fly back, not from New York, but from Dulles Airport. So they were very nimble in doing this. At that point, my rabbi, who's a Chabad rabbi, and his wife, her cousin, which is I guess his cousin, was part of the group that arranged all these people to come over. So we decided they're going to be in D.C., they're going to be at this rally, they're going to see the American support for them, which they really haven't seen on TV, which I'll get to in a minute. They decided they would try to go see some Senate offices. And so we hosted them. There was a kosher food truck that came down from New York. We hosted them at a local hotel. Matt, there were 200 of these people, 4 busloads from New York, who came in. And as my rabbi and I and his wife, Rabbi Cohen, greeted them as they came in, and my mom, who's like a CPAC icon.
We love Julie's mom.
Sylvia, she was there as well to greet them as they walked in. I know I've used the word humbling several times. The humbling does not even explain how I felt and the emotion. We're in the presence of people who know such pain and such uncertainty. So they came in, we put together this beautiful dinner for them, and they spoke. Most of them spoke in Hebrew, and so it was translated for me in real time. People telling stories, Matt, of loved ones and how they were kidnapped and not knowing if they're alive. And a young man said, my father was killed, and he had a guitar with him that he said, this is my father's favorite song. And he sang the song. And then he sang another song that he had written that talked about turning back time and if holding someone's hand. It was so painful. So I had said to my rabbi, I said, look, these people going to Capitol Hill is fine. Going to see some senators is fine. That's not going to change a lot. The American people need to hear because they're not getting everything.
They're not getting it. Yeah.
They're not getting it. So I called Mark and I said, you have a huge platform. We need to put one of these people on radio last night. So we did that, and I became now very friendly with this one woman named Yarden, and I met many of them. Her sister-in-law is kidnapped. Her 2 nieces, so the children of the sister-in-law, are kidnapped. One is 2 and one is 4 years old. The mother and father of her sister-in-law, so the grandparents of these 2 little children, were also kidnapped. The father just happened to not be at home at the time. The grandmother was found dead by the border. So now, for this woman, Yarden, it's her sister-in-law, her sister-in-law's father, and her 2 nieces. She has no idea if they're alive. She has no idea if the children are even together with their mother or together with each other. There's so much uncertainty. And so it wasn't, I had her talk. I also was on radio with her explaining to the audience what I said to you about them coming to pray. This wasn't, hey, I'm coming to the U.S. for a rally, which would have been fine, but that wasn't their purpose. Their purpose was to connect with God. So there we were, all talking. The rabbi asked me to talk, and I felt it was very, very important that these people understand that when they turn on television in Israel, because their media is horrible as well. Fox does get there. There's Arutz Sheva. There's some that are good, but generally speaking, very bad. So I thought it was so important that when they turn on TV and they see college students, university students, middle school students chanting from the river to the sea and calling basically for the destruction of the Jewish state, that they need to understand that is not a reflection of America. And so I talked about that a lot. And people came over to me in tears and thanked me. It was like, whoa, what are you thanking me for?
Well, you know why they're thanking you, because when people are hurting, they need other people and they need a community. And the sad thing in America is that those of us who have these views, for instance, have the views that Israel has an important position in the world for a whole slew of reasons, including, for many of us, biblical, but also strategically and everything else, that when people are hurting, they need people. And what we have in America is a fracturization of that community. And let me ask you this question as we close out our conversation. The thing I'm really troubled at is every time I go to figure out how many hostages there are, how many Americans there are, how many days has it been? You know, when I was a kid, we had the American hostages in Iran, and we all had yellow ribbons on our trees, and we knew exactly how many days. All the news started out by saying it's day 43 of the Americans held in Iran. Shouldn't we get that going? I mean, don't the American people, why should it take me 15 clicks to find out this information, almost like it's being hidden? Why don't we make it more ever present to people? These people need to come home. There needs to be pressure, as much pressure as possible, being put on these Hamas spokespeople and allies, mainstream people in our own society, as you said, appearing on CNN and other places. Tremendous pressure on them that they own this. They own this. If they're speaking up for a ceasefire, if they're speaking up for the fact that these are two parties, which I don't agree with. I don't agree with the two-state solution because of your tutelage. But this whole rhetoric that gets used, they're doing nothing but facilitating the terrorists to hold on to these hostages. God only knows what's going to happen to them. We need them home. Why don't we do a better job of pressuring? Do you think we need to do a better job?
I think we need to do a much better job, and I know exactly what you're talking about with Iran. There was a show called Nightline that started. Ted Koppel would say it's day 1, it's day 2, it's day 400, right? I think it was 486 or 460, whatever day they were released. We knew it. Every single American knew it, and they were aware. It was front of mind. Most people, I would say, anecdotally, don't even know that there are Americans amongst those hostages.
I agree with you.
Right. We need to have a campaign, if you will, and the campaign should be bring them home day X.
That's right.
So you and I can work on that.
I'd like to, because I feel like maybe some people view it as gimmicky, but I think it shouldn't be so hard. That's the problem in our society. They make everything so murky that should be so easy to find. And it's done purposefully. If you find you can't find basic information about something like this, it's intentional, because this is pretty simple stuff. And what we're dealing with is very basic, and it's good versus evil. It's right versus wrong. And as you said, kids, 2-year-old, 4-year-old.
Right. And there was a baby, sorry, Matt, I didn't mean to interrupt, but there's a woman who gave birth 2 days ago in Gaza. I mean, imagine that. Imagine giving birth. The hospital is being used. Now, finally, the IDF was able to take over Shiva Hospital, and they delivered incubators and so forth yesterday because the Hamas had blocked all that. Who knows about this woman's a hostage, though. She's not in the hospital. She's not getting care. Is the baby alive? Is she alive?
Yeah.
So I agree. It has to be top of mind. If I could indulge me one more second to illustrate what's going on with the Biden administration. I think your audience is a very, very smart audience, and they want the information. So I believe they're aware about the evil that is Iran. But let me just remind people, or maybe they didn't have a chance to see it. Yesterday, while 300,000 people were on the mall, and Biden sent his envoy, I think her name is like Debbie Lipstadt or something, who is, in my mind, not truly a friend of the peeps. Iran lifted sanctions to the tune of $10 billion to Iran. This is yesterday. So, and again, people say, like, how can he do that? Why? The only answer I can give is A, power, B, he and Obama and all their sycophants do believe that, like, the balance of power needs to be changed. That's the only rationale I can think of.
Well, they did it on September 11th, right? The anniversary. So, like, it's almost like they keep signaling to Iran that no matter what you hear coming out of America, we're really with you.
We're with you.
And the sad thing is we're all with the people of Iran, but it's the regime, just like it is in China, this mullah-laden, Nazi regime that's in Iran, that we should do everything to cripple. And they're doing everything to facilitate. It's the opposite of the Trump policies. Right.
So yesterday, sanction waivers were granted. So now Iran has access to another $10 billion. That's in addition to the $6 billion for the quote American hostage release. Right. Another $6 billion 3 weeks prior to that. Waiver of IMF, the International Monetary Fund, sanctions to the tune of $10 billion. And then we're not enforcing oil sanctions against Iran. So that's almost another 60, 70 billion, because they're selling oil to who? Our enemy, to China, to Venezuela.
Yeah, and Julie, if you take this to its natural conclusion, obviously we have people who might be listening to this show. We have people in America that might be dubious that this American-Israeli partnership is so strategically important. They might not have ever looked at the Bible or read the Bible and don't understand the 2,000-year history that we talk about all the time, 4,000-year history that we talk about all the time. But can they get this? If you love America and you're just an American out there and you don't know if you follow all of this, can you not get the fact that we give that many billions of dollars to Iran, that it is inevitable that America is going to get hit next? Isn't that just inevitable?
Exactly. It's inevitable. And people have to remember that in the parliament of Iran and on the streets, not by the people, but by the leadership, they chant death to the little Satan, death to Israel, death to America.
That's
they
right.
refer to Israel as the little Satan,
Yep.
and they refer to America as the great Satan.
Mm-hmm.
And when the UN lifted the drone embargo on Iran just 2 weeks ago, like 2 Wednesdays ago, as well as the building of missiles to Iran, they don't need intercontinental ballistic missiles to hit Israel. It's the same continent. Who do you think they're for? What city?
Yep.
Whether it's LA, DC, New York, Loudoun County, Virginia, they want to annihilate us. This is about creating a caliphate around the world. And it's just like Jews are the start. It's like, this is, again, Mercy and I have talked about, this isn't just a Jewish problem. This is an entire Western civilization problem. So you should be able to wrap your head around the concept, all right, Israel's Israel, not my thing, for whatever reason. Obviously, I don't agree with that. But you're here. Even if you don't love America, you're physically here.
That's right.
You're vulnerable. Yes, I agree.
Well, Julie, an amazing conversation. I just want to punctuate it by saying, we have Gordon Chang on and we talk about what China's doing, and here we have Xi in America and the pernicious nature of what China's doing. Then we have the insidious nature of our own institutions being infiltrated because of the 10 million people who have come in through the border that are sent directly to our universities. You have all of that's going on. You see the Jew hate evidence there and just the America hate that's evidenced there. But when you come on and explain to us what to me is like the powder keg of powder kegs right there, Jerusalem, Israel, the Middle East, it's a wake-up call for all of us. And we appreciate that you've given us so much of your time to do these series of programs. The only thing I'm going to make you promise is that we keep doing them and that we add this component. And I'm going to go home and talk to my smarter wife and let's figure out a way so that the American people can very quickly on a daily basis know exactly how dangerous this is. And let's remember the people who are hostages. Let's know their names. Let's know the stories that were talked about at your dinner. Let's pray for these people. But in praying for them, we also have to work like heck to make sure that all the pressure is put on these people so that we don't just kind of somehow make light of this terrible ongoing tragedy. It's not a tragedy of weeks ago. It is an ongoing tragedy.
I agree. I'd be honored. I'm very serious. We know each other for many years. I'd be honored to work with you on that. I think it's very, very important because let's remember, we still have Americans in Afghanistan.
Yeah, it's the truth.
Well, it's mind-boggling, right?
It's the truth. If we all knew how serious of a state the world is in, we probably wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So I'm glad I don't know everything, but I know enough to make me aware that we got to make some major changes. Julie Strauss Levin, we appreciate everything you do for CPAC and our CPAC community, but bigger than that, we appreciate what you do for your country and what you do for this important relationship between Israel and America. And we're going to have you back on America UnCanceled.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. Best.
All right.
Take care.
To you, my friend. Thanks to everybody for tuning into these important episodes where we talk about what's going on in Israel. I think you know that both Mercy and I feel like this is a very dangerous time for our country. It's a very dangerous time for our friends and allies. And we have a special kinship to our Old Testament friends in Israel. We had a wonderful CPAC Israel there. We hope to be back again. But if we don't take care of business, we won't be able to go back again. And that's why it's so important that we stay focused on America making the right decisions vis-a-vis the Middle East. God bless you all. We'll talk again soon.